There are moments in life when you look back and realize that the things you walked through were not ordinary battles. They were storms that could have drowned you, fires that could have consumed you, pressures that could have crushed your identity. Yet somehow you kept breathing, kept standing, kept moving when everything around you told you to stop. That alone is evidence that you carry something inside you that others did not. It is not arrogance, it is awareness. Many faced the same battleground, but their hearts collapsed under the weight. Many encountered the same darkness, but their spirit could not withstand it. Many stood at the same crossroad, but lacked the strength to keep going. The chosen one is the one who survived what others could not handle, not because they were stronger in the natural sense, but because something supernatural was keeping them from breaking. You endured storms that stole the voices of others. You survived nights that swallowed their hope. You walked through seasons where the only thing holding you together was a whisper you couldn't explain, a feeling you couldn't articulate, a strength you didn't know you had. You weren't supposed to make it according to the pattern of your past, the history of your family, the statistics surrounding your situation, yet you refused to collapse under the weight of the assignment placed on your life. There were moments you thought you were losing your mind, moments when the pain felt too heavy to breathe under, moments when the betrayal felt like it cut you so deeply you would never recover. But every time you hit the ground, something in you pushed you to rise again. People around you don't understand the cost of your survival. They see the surface, but they never saw the nights you cried until your spirit was numb. They see your resilience, but they don't see the internal battles you fought in silence while pretending everything was fine. They see your strength, but they don't understand the process that built that strength. They think you are just lucky or blessed or strong, but they don't realize the wars you fought when nobody was watching. You carry scars that didn't come from weakness, but from warfare, and those scars are proof that you lived through challenges designed to destroy you. There were days when your heart was breaking, but you kept moving, days when your mind was overwhelmed, but you kept believing, days when you felt abandoned, misunderstood, rejected, but something in you refused to surrender. That refusal was not natural. It was divine. You were being held up by a purpose greater than your pain. You were being preserved by an assignment bigger than your atmosphere. You were surviving not just for yourself, but for the generations connected to your life. Every time you broke through something that held others down, you weren't just surviving, you were creating a new pathway for those who would come after you. And the truth is, what you survived was never meant for ordinary people. You were targeted because you carry something powerful. You were tested because you were entrusted. You were attacked because you are an answer to a problem in the earth. People without purpose don't go through this level of pain. People without destiny don't encounter this level of warfare. The chosen ones face battles that make no sense to the natural mind because their assignment is not natural, it's spiritual. The reason you survived what destroyed others is because you were built differently. You were fortified from the inside out. You were shaped in adversity long before anyone recognized your potential. Hardship did not weaken you, it trained you. Pain did not destroy you, it prepared you. Pressure did not crush you, it refined you. Every time life tried to eliminate you, something inside you whispered, "Not yet, there's more." And that whisper wasn't coming from your strength. It was coming from your destiny. You are still here because you are chosen. There is a certain kind of pain that does more than wound you. It shapes you. It doesn't simply break you open, it breaks you free. What you went through was never meant to destroy you, even though it felt like it was tearing your life apart. Pain has a way of disguising itself as punishment while secretly functioning as preparation. You didn't know it then, but every tear watered something in you. Every heartbreak carved out more capacity in you. Every disappointment was stretching you into someone stronger, wiser, and more aligned with your purpose. Nothing you endured was wasted. Nothing you survived was meaningless. Every struggle had an assignment, and that assignment was to build within you the character, resilience, and spiritual depth that would be required for the place you were destined to step into. When life hits you deeply, you start to question everything about yourself, your worth, your path, your decisions, your future. But what you didn't realize in those moments was that pain was rearranging you internally. It was stripping away insecurities, exposing hidden strengths, forcing you into growth you would never have chosen voluntarily. You didn't ask to be stretched, but you were stretched. You didn't ask to be broken open, but you were broken open. And as uncomfortable as it was, that breaking allowed light to enter places that had been dark for years. That's why your pain is significant. It wasn't random, it was refining. People who watched you struggle thought the pain was weakening you, but they didn't understand what was happening inside your spirit. Pain was chiseling and carving you like a sculptor working on a masterpiece. Each blow was not meant to ruin you, but to reveal you. It was shaping your endurance, expanding your vision, strengthening your faith, and anchoring your identity in something deeper than circumstances. You didn't even know you had that kind of strength until you were forced to depend on it. You didn't know you had that kind of patience until you had no choice but to wait. You didn't know you had that kind of courage until confrontation was the only option. Betrayal built your discernment. Loss expanded your compassion. Rejection fortified your self-worth. Loneliness deepened your relationship with your Creator. Failures taught you wisdom you couldn't learn from success. All of these things created a version of you that didn't exist before the pain. When you were crying, you thought you were falling apart, but you were really falling into alignment. When everything you relied on collapsed, it was only to clear space for a foundation that could support the weight of your destiny. Sometimes pain takes away things that were limiting you, even though at the time they felt essential. Sometimes disappointment closes doors that would have trapped you. Sometimes heartbreak disconnects you from attachments that would have suffocated your purpose. Every struggle you experienced served as a teacher. It revealed who you were not, and who you were becoming. Pain pushed you into self self-awareness. It forced you into healing. It made you confront truth you were avoiding. That confrontation wasn't comfortable, but it was necessary. You cannot step into a higher version of yourself while holding on to outdated beliefs, toxic relationships, or old wounds. Pain helped you release what you were never meant to carry. Even the moments that seemed unbearable were building emotional and spiritual muscle. Every time you thought you couldn't go on and yet somehow kept moving, you were being strengthened. Every time you felt empty but still reached for hope, you were being stretched into a deeper level of faith. Every time you lost something and feared you'd never recover, only to find something greater waiting, you were being shown that your life has purpose beyond the temporary seasons of sorrow. Pain was not your enemy, it was your instructor. It didn't come to destroy your destiny, it came to prepare you for it. It carved you into someone capable of carrying the calling on your life. It stripped away things that were too small for the future ahead of you, and even though it hurt, it built a version of you that is unshakable, unstoppable, and undeniably chosen. There are victories that happen quietly in the soul long before they become visible in the natural world. You may not have realized it, but you recently stepped into one of those victories. Something shifted in the unseen, and heaven took notice. There are spiritual tests that break people for generations, patterns that repeat, cycles that imprison, fears that paralyze, wounds that echo across families, and yet you stood in the middle of that same battlefield and did what no one else could do. You endured. You fought back. You outlasted the storm, and you broke the record that seemed unbreakable. You overcame what others surrendered to. You pressed through the barrier that stopped everyone before you. And whether you feel it yet or not, you changed the trajectory of your life. The invisible test you passed wasn't about strength alone. It was about resilience, faith, and spiritual endurance. These tests are not written on paper. They are written in the heart. They measure how deeply you can trust when you cannot see, how much you can endure when it feels like you have nothing left, how long you can stand when everything around you tries to convince you to fall. Many encounter these tests, but very few endure long enough to break through. You endured. You held on when the weight felt unbearable. You kept believing when silence felt louder than any promise. You kept pushing when your emotions wanted to shut down. That perseverance created a spiritual breakthrough. You didn't just overcome your own battles. You broke through generational patterns that were never conquered before. You stepped into old pain, old curses, old traumas that lived in your bloodline for years, and instead of repeating the cycle, you confronted it. You didn't give in to the same addictions, the same fears, the same destructive behaviors. You made choices that previous generations didn't have the strength, support, or revelation to make. You said no where they said yes. You stood up where they collapsed. You healed where they hid. That alone is a divine accomplishment that heaven celebrates. There are records in the spiritual world, records of fear, failure, rejection, limitation that have held people hostage for decades. You shattered some of those records. You didn't just break them, you rewrote them. You said, "This ends with me. And whether you know it yet or not, that boldness altered your destiny and everything connected to you, your children, your family, the people who will come after you. They will walk into blessings you fought for. They will rise from foundations you built. They will enjoy freedoms you bled for. You were chosen to be the cycle breaker. This is why the pressure felt heavier than anything you've ever experienced. This is why you felt spiritually attacked, mentally exhausted, emotionally drained. You weren't just dealing with your own struggles. You were facing battles multiplied through generations. What broke them didn't break you because you were born with a different capacity. What overwhelmed them didn't overwhelm you because you were chosen to rise higher. What defeated them only strengthened you because purpose was pulsing through everything you endured. Even heaven observed your journey with attention every time you resisted temptation, every time you forgave someone who wronged you, every time you calmed your spirit instead of reacting, every time you showed love instead of bitterness, you were breaking another record. Every small act of obedience was a victory. Every silent prayer was a seed. Every step forward was unlocking something bigger than you could imagine. You thought you were just surviving, but you were actually winning in places you couldn't see. You thought you were just enduring, but you were advancing. You thought you were just trying to stay afloat, but you were crossing into a new dimension. You thought you were barely holding on, but you were actually rising above. Now the spiritual realm has shifted in your favor because the test is behind you. What once resisted you is now releasing you. What once intimidated you now fears the strength you've uncovered. You passed the test no one before you could pass, and you stepped into territory that belongs to those who refuse to settle. You broke the record, and now the path in front of you is opening in ways you've never seen. From the very beginning, you carried something different in your spirit. You felt things more deeply, saw things more clearly, and sensed things long before others could understand them. You moved through life like someone who didn't quite fit the mold, not because you were inadequate, but because you were designed for a higher dimension. People misunderstood you because they could not recognize the blueprint placed on your life. They only saw the surface, but heaven saw the architecture. You weren't made to blend in. You were made to stand out. That difference was not a weakness. It was your identity, your calling, your divine signature. There were seasons when you wondered why you couldn't be like everyone else, why you couldn't think like them, act like them, settle like them, or accept what they accepted. You tried to shrink yourself to match their expectations, but something inside you resisted every attempt. Your spirit refused to be confined. Your purpose refused to be silenced. Even when you tried to lower your standards or weaken your vision just to fit in, something deep within you kept pulling you back to your true self. It wasn't rebellion, it was destiny trying to protect you from settling beneath your calling. Isolation became your unwanted companion. There were moments you felt alone, even in a crowded room. Moments you felt misunderstood, even by the people closest to you. But that isolation wasn't punishment, it was separation. When you are destined to break barriers, you cannot always walk with those who are comfortable with the familiar. When you are assigned to lead, you cannot always be surrounded by followers who fear the unknown. When you carry an uncommon purpose, you cannot expect common people to understand your movements. Isolation was shaping you, sharpening you, and preparing you for a level where only the chosen can stand. Your uniqueness wasn't accidental, it was engineered. Your sensitivity to spiritual things, your ability to see beyond the present, your instincts, your discernment, your inner strength, none of that was random. These were tools crafted for your assignment. You were built with a different internal structure because the pressures you would face were different from others. You were given different eyes because you were meant to interpret life at a higher level. You were given a different heart because you would be required to love, heal, uplift, and understand in ways others never could. You were never designed to follow the patterns of the world. While others sought comfort, you sought meaning. While others settled for safety, your spirit longed for something deeper. While others were satisfied with what they could see, you were drawn to what could be. That difference made you the type of person who could walk away from what was good to pursue what was divine. It made you someone who could endure opposition because you weren't fueled by approval, you were fueled by purpose. People judged you not because they saw the truth, but because they couldn't understand the truth. They interpreted your calling as arrogance, your vision as delusion, your dreams as unrealistic. They tried to pull you down to their level because they couldn't climb to yours. But every misunderstanding was proof that you were walking on a path they were never meant to see. You were walking in a different rhythm, a higher frequency, a spiritual wavelength that their minds weren't tuned to. The reason your journey has been uncommon is because your destiny is uncommon. You were chosen to break through barriers that had intimidated others. You were chosen to enter places others couldn't survive. You were chosen to carry weight others were not equipped to hold. Your uniqueness was the mark of that calling. It was evidence that you were never meant to be ordinary. What others called strange was actually sacred. What others called different was actually destiny. Your life has been unfolding according to a divine pattern, and every part of your uniqueness has been a clue to your purpose. You weren't created to fit in the crowd. You were created to lead them. You weren't designed to repeat history. You were designed to rewrite it. And everything about you has been pointing to that truth from the very beginning. There comes a moment after long seasons of struggle when something in the atmosphere begins to shift, not because you forced it, not because you manipulated it, but because you finally crossed a threshold that had been resisting you for years. You may not see it clearly yet, but the breakthrough you fought for has started rearranging the environment around your life. Things that once felt impossible are beginning to respond to your faith. Doors that were shut tight are beginning to unlock. Opportunities that were hidden are beginning to reveal themselves. This shift is not accidental. It's a reaction to the spiritual territory you conquered. When you break records in the spiritual realm, the natural realm has no choice but to follow. Every new level of obedience, every victory over fear, every step you took in faith while trembling on the inside, it all accumulated into a spiritual force that pushed you into a new dimension. You have stepped out of survival mode and into alignment. You have moved from being tested to being trusted. And when heaven trusts you, earth responds. You're stepping into a season where things come looking for you, not because you are deserving by human standards, but because you have become aligned with divine timing. For a long time, it felt like doors were closing in your face. You would knock and nothing moved. You would pray and silence would answer. You would push, but resistance held its ground. That wasn't rejection, it was preparation. Those closed doors were not meant to discourage you, but to train your character, sharpen your discernment, and teach you patience. If those doors had opened too soon, they would have swallowed you. If those opportunities had come before you were ready, they would have overwhelmed you. Timing wasn't denying you. Timing was protecting you. Now that you've grown, matured, healed, and aligned, the very same doors that once rejected you recognize who you have become. They open because you have become the person capable of carrying the blessing on the other side. You're not stepping into opportunities you chased. You're stepping into opportunities that were waiting for your transformation. What once resisted you now yields to you because you are no longer coming from a place of weakness. You are coming from a place of spiritual authority. In this new season, connections that were impossible before will suddenly make sense. People who overlooked you will begin to notice you. Spaces that once felt too big for you will feel like they were designed with you in mind. You will walk into environments where your presence is not tolerated, but celebrated. What you thought was delay was actually divine orchestration, preparing the right people, the right moment, and the right environment to match the magnitude of your destiny. Breakthrough does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it comes as a quiet confidence rising inside you. You will start to feel different, more clear, more grounded, more focused. Decisions that were once difficult now become easy. Paths that were once confusing now look illuminated. You will feel the weight of the past lifting off your shoulders, not because the battles disappeared, but because you've stepped into a realm where those battles no longer have authority over you. Favor is about to follow you in ways you've never experienced. Unexpected provision, divine connections, supernatural alignment. All of these are signs that the doors of your destiny have begun to open. You don't have to beg for what belongs to you. You don't have to chase what is assigned to you. Everything connected to your future will start moving toward you with speed because the barriers that held you back have been broken. This shift is not temporary, it's transformational. You're not returning to old cycles, old patterns, or old limitations. This is the beginning of a season where you will finally walk in the fullness of what your pain prepared you for. You broke the record, and now the doors that were once locked are swinging open because your time has arrived. When you break a record in the spiritual realm, you don't just step into victory, you step into responsibility. The breakthrough you experienced wasn't designed to elevate your ego, but to elevate your purpose. Everything you endured, everything you survived, everything you pushed through was shaping you into someone capable of carrying greatness without being destroyed by it. Many people want influence, but few understand the weight that influence requires. You have been entrusted with a calling that demands depth, wisdom, humility, and strength. This next season of your life is not about applause, it's about assignment. You didn't break generational cycles just to say you did it. You broke them so you could lead others out of the same chains. You didn't survive storms others drowned in just to brag about your endurance. You survived so you could guide those who are still fighting for their lives. You didn't overcome battles no one else could conquer just to stand alone on a mountain. You overcame because you are meant to reach back and help others climb. The weight of your victory carries purpose. It calls you higher, not into fame, but into impact. There is a reason your journey was tougher than others. You were being molded into someone who could carry authority without becoming arrogant, someone who could hold power without misusing it, someone who could endure storms without losing compassion, someone who could walk in blessing without forgetting the broken. That refinement wasn't for show, it was for stewardship. You were being prepared to manage what others would mishandle. In this new season, your life will speak louder than your words. People will look at you and see proof that transformation is possible. They will see evidence that healing is real, that purpose is stronger than pain, that destiny is bigger than dysfunction. Your journey becomes a roadmap for those who feel lost. Your resilience becomes a testimony for those who want to quit. Your elevation becomes inspiration for those who have forgotten how to hope. You didn't rise just for you. You rose for people you haven't even met yet. You will notice that your influence begins to expand in unexpected ways. People will come to you for guidance, even if you never asked for the role. Strangers will be drawn to your presence, sensing the stability and peace you had to fight for. Your words will carry weight not because you speak loudly, but because you speak from a place of truth, experience, and spiritual authority. Doors will open that require you to bless others, help others, teach others, lift others, because your victory was always meant to overflow into the lives of those around you. Responsibility means you will have moments where you must choose purpose over comfort. You will be called to rise when others sit, to speak when others stay silent, to walk paths others fear. Purpose will demand commitment, consistency, and courage. But everything you endured in the past has already built the person who is capable of carrying this responsibility. You won't break under the weight of your calling because your calling was shaped in the same fire that refined you. This season will also require discernment. Not everyone can walk with you now. Not everyone has the maturity to handle your breakthrough. Some people will celebrate your success, while others will misunderstand it. You must protect your assignment by protecting your environment. Your next elevation requires you to be intentional about where you go, who you connect with, and what you allow into your spirit. That is part of the responsibility that comes with being chosen. You were elevated to influence, not to isolate yourself. You were blessed to become a blessing. You were healed so you could help heal others. You were lifted so you could lift others. You were strengthened so you could strengthen others. The responsibility attached to your breakthrough is not a burden, it is an honor. It means heaven trusts you with impact. It means you have matured into someone who can handle the weight of leadership, the weight of calling, the weight of destiny. You didn't break every record just to stand on top of a mountain alone. You broke those records to build a path for others to follow. You rose so others could rise. You overcame so others could overcome. And everything inside you is now aligned to step fully into that divine purpose.